Hello everyone, and welcome to HORRORific Tales. In this segment we celebrate the creations of independent and small press authors. Please like and subscribe and share these episodes so we can help our talented friends get as much exposure as possible. We would also appreciate it if you could support our artists by following them on their individual platforms and by purchasing their works. Details on how to do this are in the episode description. In this HORRORific tale, two brothers, reunited after a traumatic childhood, find themselves in a battle with each other and for their souls. Join us now as we present Bound in Blood by Shawn D Brinks. The high priest's dark gaze and the chill down Seth's back. He withstood the pressure of that stare, but it wasn't easy. He wondered how it affected Jason, his identical twin. He stood so close that their shoulders touched. Two blonde-haired, blue-eyed men. Around him the kinship gathered with obvious interest. This room was dark, except for the twinkling light of many tiny flames. They flickered from candles, held by every member of the kinship. Each one held a candle with the exception of the high priest, Jason and Seth. The kinship were uttering various mantras and incantations, an offering of noise to their benevolent spirits. Spirits that Seth wasn't sure even existed. When the priest raised his hands, the sudden silence felt ominous. The stillness beckoned. Seth could feel it. Yes, something existed. Maybe not spirits, but something. He wondered if Jason felt it. He was sure his brother believed the idea of spirits here. Jason made a 2-year head start in the kinship. No doubt he believed it all. The priest wore only a black leather kilt and unbuttoned matching vest that exposed his bare chest. Scattered across his skin, pagan symbols emphasized his devotion. Some were tattoos, others appeared to be carved or even burned into his flesh. Of the carvings, some were old and scarred, raised and pale. Others were fresher. One still glistened with fresh blood. The priest looked like a psychotic biker, the sort that bad girls wouldn't even date. His blonde beard was long and unkempt, as was the matted tangle of hair on his head. His tanned skin was weathered, rather than a healthy glow. This was all new to Seth. New and terrifying. Part of him wanted to run away. He wasn't sure anymore that this is where he belonged. He wanted it to be where he belonged. Jason had certainly talked the kinship up, told him how they rescued him from the streets 2 years earlier, and how they could do the same for him, if only he bought into their beliefs, hook, line and sinker. In the end, he didn't run. How far could he get? And, even if nobody stopped him, could he outrun the spirits, if indeed that's what they were? Why am I here? He wondered. What did the kinship want with him? What was in it for them? There's always a quid pro quo. He had learned that from his mother. He could only say why he was here. Because of my brother. Unlike Seth, Jason seemed certain that the kinship was where he belonged. He had spent most of the last few hours trying to convince Seth about why he should feel the same. All Seth saw was the power of 2 years of indoctrination. He had almost ran away with him back then. Staying with Mum wasn't an easy option, and Seth never blamed Jason for running away. What kept him from leaving was his suspicion that something might happen to their mum. He should have cared more about Jason. Their mum, Amanda, was Seth and Jason's flesh and blood mother, but that's where the relationship ended. Because of her life choices, her son suffered deplorable living conditions. In fact, the only thing that prevented them from being homeless was Amanda's ability to keep men around. These men secured a roof over their heads and supplied Amanda with what she needed to feed her addictions, but they provided little else. Quid pro quo arrangements abounded between Amanda and her men, and the brothers were rarely part of the negotiations. The boys were allowed to live in the house. Amanda always made sure of that, but the boys needed more than just a roof over their heads. They needed a father. Seth used to fantasize that their real father would come home, kick all the other men out, and get Mum cleaned up. Then they would all just be one big happy family, eating dinner at the table and playing catch down at the park. Seth's fantasy was a pipe dream. Neither he nor Jason had ever met their real father. He had left before they were born, which probably meant he was no less a loser than their mother. What hurt Seth the most was the fact that Amanda didn't seem to mind the presence of all these strange men. All that mattered was that she got what she needed from them. None of Amanda's men ever laid a hand on the boys. These types always looked for the easiest targets. The boys stuck together to ensure that they would not be easy targets. The decision to run away was a hard one for Seth to make. He'd always hoped that somehow he could save his mum. Eventually though, he understood that she was beyond saving. When Seth ran away, he searched the streets for his brother. Unfortunately, Jason wasn't easy to find. After a few days he became desperate. By this time he had no food, friends, or protection. Finally, Jason heard his brother was searching the city for him. They reunited on 42nd Street. From 42nd Street, Jason took Seth directly to the kinship and introduced him to the High Priest. The High Priest's name was Cain. He seemed happy to meet Seth. Almost too happy. Immediately he called for an official kinship gathering and required all to bring initiation candles. While the kinship gathered, Cain spoke to the brothers in private about a prophecy which the spirits foretold. Two identical brothers would come separately, and when they joined forces, their power would be greater than the sum of their parts. Cain believed that this prophecy was about to be fulfilled in Seth and Jason. It had been revealed to him through the rolling of bones. Jason nodded vigorously through Cain's monologue, but Seth remained skeptical. The kinship crowded in close, their faces reflecting the candlelight in ghoulish fashion. They appeared enthralled with Cain's story. Cain finished telling of the prophecy, and how he had been given knowledge regarding Seth and Jason, and how they were the chosen instruments of the spirits. Through them the prophecy would be fulfilled, and the kinship would rule the city. Somewhere above, Seth thought he heard a soft murmur. Evidence of the spirits? He wasn't sure if he'd heard anything at all, and now all was silent. Seth's confusion shifted towards fear, and he once more felt an urge to flee. What prevented him from bolting was the knowledge that he had nowhere to run. Plus, there were obvious advantages to affiliating oneself with the kinship. They offered protection from the streets. They offered reputation. They offered a home. His only requirement was to pledge loyalty and join the ranks, and do whatever I'm told, no matter what it is or how ghastly. But was this any different from the world he just ran from? Certainly, he felt the same pressure of quid pro quo here that always existed in his mother's home. Was Cain just like the men in Mum's life? Was Cain's real motive simply to exploit him and Jason for his own benefit? For his own power? Seth felt torn. He didn't think he wanted anything to do with this cult, but he finally found his brother, and his brother was all he had in the world, and the kinship was his brother's world. Cain's voice boomed. "Now, let the ceremony begin." The kinship moved closer. Seth felt the weight of their anticipation pressing down upon him. Cain continued. "The spirits among us are pleased. They revealed to me that the prophecy will soon be fulfilled. Jason has brought us his dear brother, his own flesh and blood." A sense of foreboding came over Seth. He didn't know what the spirits were exactly, but there was something here. Something powerful. The light of the candles flickered as an unseen presence moved through the room. In that light, Cain looked diabolical. "Spirits don't give the power without blood sacrifice."
There must be blood,
the kinship chanted in unison. "Power is in the blood," Cain shouted.
Power is in the blood,
the kinship replied. "Power is in the blood." Those words compounded Seth's fear. Cain moaned, low and guttural. The kinship joined one by one. Even Jason joined, leaving Seth the only silent one. "Don't resist," came a disembodied whisper. Seth trembled. "Surrender to us. Confess your loyalties." Seth tasted blood as he bit down on his lip in fear. "Join your brother. Receive great power. Fulfill the prophecy." Seth opened his eyes. He hadn't noticed closing them. All moaning ceased. The resulting silence was akin to standing in the eye of a hurricane, knowing the tempest would soon resume. "Blood is demanded," Cain's voice shattered to silence. "It must be spilled." Cain drew a knife with an evil curved blade, and Seth's skin instantly goose-fleshed. "Blood will spill," the priest shouted. "There must be sacrifice."
There must be sacrifice,
the kinship agreed. Seth yelped. Pain hit. It was over in less than a second. Cain's knife sliced deep into Seth's flesh. Blood spilled. Maxine sat in the first row of Zion Hill's sanctuary. She was one of about a dozen worshippers, average attendance for the Sunday evening prayer service. She focused on the pastor as he led worship. He wasn't standing at the pulpit. For this small service, he chose to preach from a folding chair. The pastor's name was Pete Jones. He was of average height, without an ounce of fat on his frame. His face, always clean-shaven, was just starting to show the wrinkles of time. His hair was dark, thick, and always combed straight back without a part. His near-constant smile either conveyed pure contentment or one hiding discontent. Maxine could never decide which. Maxine was saved about a year ago, accepting Christ and receiving baptism at Zion's Hill shortly after arriving in the city. She came to find a job that utilised her degree and was still looking, but her newly found faith and church family was a definite plus for a young black American college graduate such as herself. Maxine lived in a small apartment only a block or so from the church. She took advantage of grocery store sales. She paid her bills, and anything extra went to the collection plate at Zan's Hill, which she gave gladly. Adulting was tricky, but she was determined to succeed. The Sunday evening service was always informal. Zan's Hill was in the middle of a blue-collar neighbourhood, where jeans were preferable to slacks, t-shirts were chosen over blouses, and open collars worn out to ties and sports jackets. People simply came as they were. The evening service began with a few hymns, sung a cappella. Then pastor read some chosen scriptures, followed by the message. Lastly, the prayers would start when someone had come to say. There was no set time to end the service. When the praying's done, we're done, pastor always said. Maxine loved Sunday evening service, especially the prayers. They just started that portion when something odd occurred. A darkness fell over her. It was so intense it pulled her from her prayers. She had never experienced anything like it. Maxine opened her eyes, but nobody else seemed affected. It felt like a wet wool blanket had been placed on her face, making it hard to breathe. Just then, a voice called out, "Something's coming against this church!" The voice was Jasmine's. All eyes turned to the old prophetess, but Jasmine's wrinkled face was stone-cold serious. Her snow-white hair, which was usually kept in a neat little bun on top of her head, looked frazzled, complementing the agitation in her eyes. She leaned her 90-pound frame against her cane, and looked fairy enough to take on an elephant and win. She glared through glasses thick as binoculars. "Something's coming against this church," she declared again. The spiritual darkness over Maxine pressed harder as the old woman spoke. Jasmine raised her fist and uttered for the third time, "Something powerful! Something's coming against this church," she added. "It's ugly, it's dark, and it's powerful." "What's coming, Miss Jasmine?" asked Marcus, a tall man seated behind Maxine, with early onset male pattern baldness. "Marcus," she retorted, "how long have you been saved? How mature is your faith? Can't you answer your own questions by now?" Marcus looked down, his bald head reflecting the light. "We know what's coming," she said to everyone. "We know who it is. Who's the ugliest? Who's the darkest?" She paused. "I tell you, it's the fallen one himself. It's Satan who's preparing an attack." Her cane bowed with the strain she put on it as Jasmine's eyes roamed the crowd. This passion was one of the reasons Maxine became part of Zan's Hill. It wasn't just Jasmine or Pastor Pete, or any of the others. It was all of them. Zan's Hill was a family of believers who loved God and held the biblical truth. Nothing was watered down, especially when it came to every Christian's enemy, the one who has many names: Satan, Lucifer, the devil, Beelzebub, Prince of Darkness, etc. "There's a war raging," Pastor Pete always said. "The day you become a Christian is the day Satan puts a target on your back. Mark my words, the devil wants to destroy you in this world. But take heart, Christ has overcome the world." "We must prepare for onslaught," Miss Jasmine shouted. "The battle lines are drawing. Jesus have mercy." Pastor Pete stood tall. "Put on your armour, wear the belt of truth, don the breastplate of righteousness, shod your feet in the gospel of peace, grab your shield of faith and helmet of salvation, take up the sword of God's word. The armour is best donned through prayer," Miss Jasmine added. "Oh, we'll pray," Pete answered. "God is good. We are under his protection." That said, the prayers began, and Maxine's darkness retreated. Still, it existed and could return, so she prayed in earnest and prepared for the battle to come. Seth groaned against the pain as Cain's blade cut into his hand. Blood pooled in Seth's palm. Seth pulled against Cain's grip, splattering blood onto the floor, himself, Cain, and everything, but Cain refused to relinquish his hold. Cain's eyes were dark as night. Seth sensed a presence within the priest, a spiritual presence. Identical darkness rested upon Jason as well. "Come to your brother," Cain said to Seth. Then to Jason, "Hold out your hand." Jason grinned. He held out his hand. "There's power in blood," said the priest as he sliced deep into Jason's palm. Jason's grin remained as his blood overflowed his hand, trickling along his arm and falling in great drops to the floor. Cain dropped the knife and pressed both men's wounds together. That's when Seth's senses heightened. The darkness felt stronger, the silence deeper. Seth shut his eyes tight, hoping to push it all away, wanting to push it all away. But this was reality, his reality, and it could not be discounted so easily. Blood oozed between their clasped fingers. It ran down their arms, it dripped to the floor. Jason's pulse pounded strong through Jeff's lacerated palm, but with the pulse something else. The presence made itself known. Seth opened his eyes and looked up. The shadows above felt alive. From that point on, he couldn't discount the existence of the spirits, because he beheld them with his own eyes. He looked away, repulsed. "You are flesh of the same flesh, and bone of the same bone, separated before birth, and yet connected," Cain's voice boomed. The priest's voice felt so close, almost within him. He looked up once more, sensing the presence in the shadows. "Do you sense them, Seth?" "Do you sense them, Jason?" Cain pointed up. "The spirits approve of your union." The shadows descended. Seth wanted to run, but his legs wouldn't move. Plus, his brother remained, tightly gripping his hand. If Jason felt the same repulsion, he had it well. Jason's grin grew to absurd levels, like the Cheshire Cat's toothy smile. Cain shouted, "Flesh of the same flesh, bone of same bone, bound by blood, you are connected. Together you will do great things, for the kinship and the ruling spirits." Their heartbeats synced and boomed loudly in Seth's head. He felt their shared bond pulse through the circulatory system they now shared. "The spirits have spoken," Cain said. "Now, a test." Seth didn't want to be tested. "There is an unwanted presence upon our turf," Cain continued. "A poisonous enemy stronghold that must be eradicated. We will kill for the kinship and for the spirits." Jason answered for them both. "No," Seth thought. "I can't. I won't. Who is this enemy?" "The spirits have revealed the stronghold's name." Cain paused. "Zion's Hill." The name boomed like a thunderclap, causing Seth's blood to chill within his veins. He knew of Zion's Hill. It was a church located just a few blocks away, over on 42nd Street. Very close, in fact, to where Jason had found him earlier that day. Cain drew near. "I see it in your eyes. You know the place." "It's nothing, just a small church," Seth managed a small, insignificant voice. "They are deceptive," Cain shot back. "Bigger than they appear. To us, they're venomous cancer that must be eliminated." "I can't. I mustn't." "Their prayers are poison. The kinship spirits hate it. Zion's Hill must be destroyed." Seth cringed. He didn't want to destroy anybody, but this was the test on the table, and he saw no way out. What would happen if I declined? Cain moved within an inch of Seth's ear. He whispered, "Prayerful and Zion's Hill must die," and then, almost as an afterthought, "Or you can take their place instead." And that last statement said it all. Maxine shivered. The prayerful of Zion's Hill must die. Where had that thought come from? She opened her eyes. Pastor Pete stopped his prayer mid-sentence. Had he heard the same words? The prayerful of Zion's Hill must die. He resumed praying. Maxine closed her eyes. The voice didn't speak again. However, what it said stuck in her mind. The prayerful of Zion's Hill must die. "Dear God," came Pastor's voice, "we come to you needing your strength and wisdom. There is a darkness coming against us, and within the darkness an enemy hides. Please give us strength. Please overcome our fears. We know that you are far greater than anything this enemy can muster. Jesus, you overcame death itself for us. Protect us." Jasmine put in her 2 cents. "Lord, cover us with the blood of Jesus," she yelled. "Because that roaring lion, the devil, is on the prowl looking for someone to devour." Pete's voice. "Lord, protect us from that prowling lion, the one who comes only to destroy, only to steal. Lord, protect us, your faithful servants." Maxine nodded, yet a shiver escaped. Her chill remained deep in her bones. Pete was right. God was mighty to save. The God of Zion's Hill was far greater than anything Satan could throw against him. Yet her chill persisted. What if I'm not strong enough? A disturbing thought. "Jesus, help me overcome my doubts," she whispered. She shivered again. What exactly was coming against God's church? Pete knew it was satanic, but what form would it take? Would it be spiritual or physical? And when would it show itself? What he did know was that if God wanted him to have specifics, then he would have been provided in Jasmine's prophecy. A test of faith, he thought. I'll pass the test. Despite his resolution, he shivered in fear. The setting sun might be beautiful, but Seth didn't notice. He led Jason towards Zion's Hill. Only 13 hours ago, he'd nearly entered that place. It felt much longer since he'd read that sign. Zion's Hill Church. Calling Jesus. He alone can save. The mission's weight pressured him. This was the point of no return. The prayerful of Zan's Hill must die, or you can take their place. Cain's words haunted him. Both brothers carried a black cinch bag. Cain instructed them not to investigate them until at Zan's Hill. He had added, and remember, completing this test will verify prophecy fulfillment. Or you can take their place instead. Are we almost there? Jason hissed. Seth nodded. They continued down Jackson Street towards 42nd. No cars drove by. No pedestrian walked on the sidewalk. Odd, thought Seth, but welcome. Absence of people meant absence of witnesses. How near? Jason inquired. Just around the corner. Let's open our bags. Seth paused, then nodded. Cain had made it clear that Jason was the lead on this mission. He made the calls. Seth obeyed the order and looked into his bag. The contents confirmed. He had passed the point of no return. The nearest streetlight's lamp revealed the bag's contents: a black ski mask, a pair of form-fitting black gloves, a compact handgun, along with enough clips to get the job done. Beretta 9mm. The perfect choice for tonight, wouldn't you say? Jason's joy made Seth's gut wrench. When did you learn so much about guns, brother? The last 2 years must have been quite an education. Seth had no idea if it was a good choice. He'd never held a gun in his life, and he'd certainly never fired one. His expression must have given away this fact. It's easy, Jason said. Just flick the safety switch, snap in the clip, point the danger sign in the right direction, and pull the trigger. I can't, Seth told himself. At the same time, though, he remembered. The prayerful of Zan's Hill must die. Or you can take their place instead. They put on masks and gloves. Then they each slid a clip into their weapon and chambered around. Seth looked around once more. No witnesses. The street remained deserted. Looks like hunting season is open, Jason said as his lips curved into a grin through the mouth hole of his mask. Seth nodded and tried to keep his hand from trembling. Could he kill for the kinship? He'd know the answer very soon. You have no choice, Seth thought. He watched Jason sling his bag of clips over his shoulder, and did likewise with his own. Just like old times, Jason said through a grin. Seth shook his head. We've never done this before. Here's to doing new things then, Jason nodded. We've got to fix your jacket. Seth looked down at the jacket he wore. It was one of the few things his mother gave him on a rare day when she had been sober enough to take on some semblance of motherhood. Getting it was one of his few good childhood memories. He wore it everywhere. It was an old olive green Vietnam-era army jacket with many pockets. The insignia and rank stripes had been removed before he had received it from the thrift store. However, for some reason, the name patch remained. Jacobson. It hung loose on him back when he first received it, but he'd grown into it over the years. Now it fit him like a glove. Jason said, That jacket is far too recognizable. You've got to lose it. No. No? Jason asked. I'm in charge here, remember? You're in charge, but you know what this jacket means to me. I won't throw it away. You must. It's too easy to identify. If the spirits are as powerful as you say, it won't matter now, will it? Seth retorted. The stare down continued. Finally, Jason looked away. Well, do something about it. I'm not going to prison because you can't part with your security blanket. Seth removed the cinch bag and tried to stuff it in, but it wouldn't fit with all those clips in there, so he put on his jacket inside out. This'll have to do. Jason shook his head, but didn't argue. They rounded the corner, with guns drawn, held low and close to avoid attention. But the street remained empty. The spirits are working in our favour, Jason said. The church appeared out of the endless line of downtown storefronts. Its only identification was that sign which hung out front. They drew near. The street remained still. The silence felt unnatural and conflicted with Seth's inner screams. He didn't know what to think about the spirits. Could he kill for them? That was the real question, one that would soon be answered. Seth closed his eyes and drew a deep breath. His hands trembled. He held the gun in both hands, trying to steady his grip. His knuckles bulged through the gloves from the pressure of grasping the gun's handle. He glanced at Jason. That ever-present grin was plastered on his face. His hands were steady as a rock. Light illuminated the sidewalk outside Zan Hill's storefront window. Seth's frown deepened. The church wasn't empty. There's no going back. They entered the light from that window and looked across the glass. Jason, cool as cucumber, pressed his ski mask's face right up against the glass. Reluctantly, Seth joined him. The reflection of Seth's face nauseated him. A masked man with a gun had an agenda for murder. Looking past his reflection, he saw the church was actually an old repurposed movie theatre. The lobby was from a bygone era and had seen better days. Still, the tarnished brass and chipped wood of the space held a certain charm. Seth's eyes followed the light. The lobby itself wasn't lit, beyond the old candy display, and a sign on an easel angled towards the front windows that mentioned worship service and Sunday school times was the entrance to the theatre. This is where the light came from. Seth heard a knock and jumped a foot back. Somebody was staring out at him through the glass. Jason stood there looking out at Seth. He motioned for Seth to join him. Seth nodded. He reached out with his hand still trembling and opened the door to Zion's Hill. Pastor Pete continued to lead prayer. Maxine closed her eyes and bowed her head, but the chill in her bones was distracting. What did Jasmine's prophecy mean? Maxine wondered. Maxine's eyes shot open, her ears ringing, her head jolted towards the sound. Two masked men stood in the sanctuary's entrance at the back of the sanctuary. Both wielded handguns. A thin wisp of white smoke came from one of the guns. Maxine's eyes widened and her pulse speed doubled. Seth knew now that Jason was 100% committed to the kinship. Also, there was no going back for either of them. Jason's bullet embedded itself into the far wall's moulding, missing the pastor's head by inches. The round would have met its intended target if not for Seth's last-second reaction. Now, judging by the rage in his brother's face, he wondered if deflecting Jason's aim had been wise. Jason shoved him hard. "What's wrong with you?" Seth stumbled back, using the doorframe to stay upright. "I can't live with murder in my hands, no matter what the cost." The hatred in Jason's eyes forced Seth to look down. "There has to be another way," Seth finally said. "No amount of power can be worth shedding innocent—" "Shut up!" Jason hissed. "I take you in, I offer you protection, and this is how you thank me?" Cain's words rang in Seth's mind. The prayerful of Zion's Hill must die, or you can take their place instead. It doesn't matter, he told himself. "These are innocent people," he said to Jason, his voice wavering with fear. Jason scoffed. "Innocent? Innocent?" "Yes," Seth countered. He looked at those seated in the rows. Not one of them moved a muscle. "These are those who pray to the enemy. These are the enemy." "It's not right." "You don't know what a world of trouble you've just opened for yourself. For us both, we're bound by blood oath to do the Spirit's bidding, to fulfill the prophecy." "But now," Seth mustered his courage. "I don't care about any of that. I won't kill for it." Seth looked up from the floor as Jason took aim at his brother. "We're at war," Jason spat. "This is your last chance. Choose your allegiance." "Don't do this," Seth begged, his breath coming in fearful gasps. Other than the brothers' dialogue, all was silent. Nobody in the congregation moved. "We have no choice," Jason retorted. "We are bound by blood to do the Spirit's bidding. We're bound by blood to the kinship. If you do this, then you're no better than those men Mom took in." Jason's aim teetered, his hands shook. "Don't say that." "It's true," Seth dared say. "Shut up," Jason murmured. He now held the gun in both hands, steadying his aim. "Don't do this," Seth pleaded. "My loyalties are to the kinship." Jason's voice was low and guttural. "And that makes you my enemy." In the distance a siren wailed, growing louder with every passing moment. "Looks like we've been discovered," Seth said. "Probably wasn't wise to fire your gun." Jason's rage couldn't be ignored. His face was venomous with it. The sirens were very loud now. His trigger finger played against the trigger, on the cusp of discharging his weapon point blank into Seth's face. Seth looked away, bracing himself against the doorframe, wondering if it would hurt much to die this way, but the bullet never came. "Go ahead, coward," Jason's voice hissed. "Run away. Don't go running back to the kinship, and don't ever come crawling back to me." Seth looked at Jason. There was no love in his brother's face, only hatred and rage. Jason lowered his weapon. "Get going." Seth turned and ran back out the way he came. The outside air chilled him, drying the rivers of perspiration which covered every inch of his skin. He ran down the sidewalk. The street was still empty. The red-blue alternations of emergency lights flashed just around the block's corner. They'd be here in only a few seconds. He crossed 42nd and entered the darkness of the nearest alley. His brain screamed, "Don't stop!" So, he didn't. Jason watched his cowardly brother flee. Then he turned his attention to those seated in the old theatre. The terror in their eyes verified why none of them dared run. He still had a cinch bag full of ammo, but without his brother's help, and with time running out, killing them all would prove problematic. He thought about Seth. "I should have killed him when I had the chance." "Lord, have mercy on us," he heard a voice. It came from one of the seat warmers. 2 years with the kinship meant Jason hated it when Christians prayed. He'd been sent to silence prayers just like that. "Oh Lord, forgive him. He knows not what he's doing." The old woman's voice grated on his nerves. "Shut up!" Jason screamed, waving his gun in the congregation's general direction. "I tell you that if these keep quiet, the very stones will cry out." He saw who it was that spoke, an old lady with a cane. He aimed at her. "I said, shut up!" He considered shooting her. The time was nearly gone. With a grunt, he lowered his weapon and fled the scene. By now the cops were probably out front. So he bolted past the congregants, beyond the old theatre screen, and exited the building via the back door. The instant he exited, the emergency alarm sounded. He sprinted the length of the dark alley, bolted across the street, and into the next alley. He heard shouting. The cops must have reached the back of the theatre. He kept running, and the shouts grew fainter. Soon after, they could no longer be heard. He kept running. Well, we hope that you enjoyed our latest horrific tale. If you want to keep up to date with future episodes, then subscribe to our email list for our weekly newsletter. You can also give the channel support by visiting our merchandise store or using the affiliate links in the episode description. We would also appreciate it if you took a moment to support our contributor artists who very kindly lend their talents to this show. Check out the links in the description to see how you can do this. Well, that just leaves me to say, until next time my friends, keep it creepy, keep it horrific.